You know, when I first moved to this city, I was looking for a quieter life. The city itself had gone through a lot. What with businesses closing down and people moving out, streets that once buzzed with life were now more or less empty. Perfect for someone like me, a freelance illustrator who thrives in solitude. I needed that calm to sort out the mess from my past life and focus on my art. But things got weird pretty fast. It started with my evening walks, just a routine I had to clear my head, you know? The first few times were fine, peaceful even, but then I started feeling uneasy. It was like someone was always right behind me. I'd turn around and there'd be no one, completely empty streets. It got me thinking maybe I was just being jumpy, imagining things. But it wasn't just a feeling. I started hearing things, whispers that didn't make any sense, just out of reach. Sometimes I'd catch something or someone moving just in the periphery of my vision. And the weirdest part? Sometimes it felt like a cold breath swept past my neck. I'd whirl around, heart pounding, and nothing. No one was there. I tried talking to my friends about it. They figured it was just the stress of moving and all the changes. Maybe part of me wanted to believe that, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. It felt too real, too consistent, and every time I stepped outside, it was like those deserted streets weren't just empty. They were waiting and watching. It was enough to make anyone's skin crawl, and mine was crawling nonstop. So as the days went by, that feeling of being watched didn't just stick around. It got worse. It got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. I started changing up my walking routes, going out at different times, trying to shake this feeling off. But it didn't matter what I did. That sense of being followed clung to me like a shadow. I had to know I wasn't losing it, you know. I started recording my walks on my phone, thinking maybe I'd catch something, anything that could explain what was going on. I'd play those videos back and scrutinize every frame, but nothing ever seemed out of place. No one was there but those whispers, that sensation of something brushing against me. It was all still happening. It was maddening. One day, I'm at this old cafe in town, trying to take my mind off things. There's a group of old-timers there, and they're talking about local legends. They start on about some guardian spirit that follows people who are lonely or troubled, supposed to keep them safe or something. I overhear this and just about laughed it off. I mean, come on, right? But still, something about that story nagged at me. Then, one night, it all sort of clicked. I was going over the footage again, more out of frustration than hope. And that's when I saw them. These weird, brief distortions, always a few steps behind me. It's like the camera caught what I felt, but couldn't see. Every hair on my body stood up. It was real. Something was definitely there, and it had been following me all along. It sounds crazy, but seeing those distortions made it all too real. So there I was, you know, totally at my breaking point. I couldn't live like this anymore, jumping at shadows and hearing whispers. I had to face whatever it was. The next time I felt that chilling sensation, that whisper just behind me, I stopped dead in my tracks, right there in the middle of the street. I spun around and just shouted, "Who are you? What do you want from me?" I must have looked crazy to anyone passing by, but luckily the streets were as empty as ever. And then something happened. The air in front of me kind of shimmered like heat off the pavement, but it was cold out. Slowly, this faint silhouette starts forming, and it's like the figure of someone I kind of remembered from way back when I was a kid in another city, a place I hadn't thought about in years. This thing, this presence. It didn't say anything, but right then, it was like I could feel what it was feeling. This deep, aching loneliness that matched my own. It was this wild, surreal moment where I realized it wasn't there to harm me. It felt drawn to me because of my own solitude, my own sort of isolation. I don't know why, but I started to accept it. I kept going on my walks, talking to it. It sounds nuts, but talking to this unseen thing, I felt less alone. It kind of became comforting in a weird way. But here's the kicker. The day I really accepted this presence, I got back home and there's this letter in my mailbox. It's old. Looks like it's been lost for a while, addressed to someone who used to live in my apartment. It was a condolence letter, talking about the death of a sibling who had always promised to look after their family no matter what. That hit me like a ton of bricks. It made me wonder, what if this presence was that promise somehow kept? It's a chilling thought, but it makes you think, doesn't it? about the promises we make and the things we leave behind.